Today is day 19 of the 100-day Russian challenge, and I'm now going to spend a few days actively cramming my mind with vocabulary. As you know, vocabulary is one of the key components of the system I'm using, and I'm going to start with learning a lot of Russian verbs. So on this site, Master Russian, it's a great resource. I have found a list of the top 500 Russian verbs. We have its rank, the verb itself, English translation, and the aspect pair, which is very important for Russian. So let me go to the site here. Let's take a look. For example, быть, быть means to be, or can mean to have, I guess. It says that's an imperfective form, and it does not have a pair, although it does give a note here, but we won't get into that. Whereas сказать, the number 2 verb on the list, obviously a very common verb, means to say or to speak, and its aspect pair is говорить, сказать. So сказать, so imperfective is always first in these pairs. So говорить is the imperfective, one of the first verbs everybody learns when learning Russian. One of the verbs you learn first, and then сказать is the perfective. That's the thing with Russian, as you probably know. Every time you learn a verb, you have to learn 2 verbs. 2 verb pairs, and often they look similar to each other. Typically, there will be the perfective will look like, let's take a look here, like number 8, хотеть, to want, very common verb again. So the pair is хотеть and захотеть. I think that's захотеть. I'm not even sure I'm pronouncing that correctly. So often you create the perfective by adding some kind of prefix to the imperfective. For example, here, number 10, iti, paiti. Okay. Adding a po is very common, but it's not always like that. Sometimes they're just completely different, like говорить, сказать. Sometimes it's not a suffix, but there's some change internally in the middle of the word. But at the end of the day, basically, you have to learn 2 verbs for every one that you would learn in, say, Spanish or French, or English for that matter, because these verbs will be, for the most part, translated the same way. Читать and почитать, so read and read. But читать, почитать are both translated as read, or to read. But this gets into another aspect of Russian grammar that we won't talk about today. What you do need to do is you need to know these. Not just recognize them, but be able to produce them. And that's what I'm going to work on for the next 2 or 3 days. I want to memorize this entire list of 500 Russian verbs, both imperfective and perfective forms of the verbs. I'm not necessarily going to memorize the full conjugation of each verb, but I at least want to recognize if somebody says to me, okay, speak, and I should be able to say immediately, говорить, сказать. That's the idea. So verbs are very important anyway. They're basically the backbone of the spoken language. You must know verbs. Even if you can't conjugate the verb, you can say something like, я говорит русский. Yeah, I mean, you sound like a caveman if you say that. I to speak Russian. Okay. But, and you would want to say that. We want to speak at a higher level than that. But if necessary, if it's a matter of life and death and you need to get an idea across, you can at least do that. So, over the next few days, hopefully not too long, I want to know all these verbs. I'm going to start, so it's on this site, masterrussian.com. It's got the top 500 verbs listed in order of frequency. And what I've done to test myself is I've copied the full list into a Google Sheet, which you can see here. Let me just make sure it's coming up on screen. Yes, it is. Okay, so this is the full list of the 500 verbs. Okay, yeah, down to number 500. And it's, even though it's got 500 entries here, it won't actually be 500, because, for example, сказать is number 2, but говорить is number 4. And in fact, говорить and сказать are just an aspectual pair. So I don't know if it does that for all of them. Let's try. Let's do a little test. Хотеть is number 8, and захотеть. Why can't I copy this? Okay, let me do a search for захотеть to see if it's also in. Oops, didn't mean to copy that. Do a search on the page. Захотеть comes up once. Yeah, захотеть is entry 314, and it gives хотеть, захотеть. So maybe it's not actually 500 verbs at all. It might just be roughly half that. In any case, even if it's only 250 verbs, that's a lot of verbs. And these are the most common ones, so we should know them. Yeah, so let me show you how I'm going to test myself, just very simply here. For now, I'm not going to put them in an Anki or a flashcard program. I'm just going to test myself the old school way. So to do that, in this Google Sheet, I'm going to black out all the columns except the one with the English translation. Okay, so now I can only, oops, didn't mean to do that. This one, there we go. So all I can see is the English translation. Now these first few I should know. So to be, wheat, 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 wheat. Okay, and then to check if I got it right, I just show it again, and sure enough, wheat, wheat. Okay, to say, speak. Everyone knows that. That's one of the first ones you learn. Говорить, сказать. And I want to try and know if I don't get both imperfective and perfective, then I'm not going to consider that. I'm not going to consider it to be correct. I'll consider that I got it wrong. Okay, so to be able is moch and smoch. Let's see if I got it right. So far so good. I should know these because these are all the most common verbs. To say, tell, speak. Well, again, that's говорить, сказать. Let's see if I get into one. To know, yeah, to know is знать, and узнать is the perfective, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, знать, узнать. Okay. To become. To become is stать. What's the? And I think that's the perfective actually. So становиться, I want to say. Let's see if I got it right. Становиться. Okay, I got lucky on that one. Становиться. And I'm not 100% sure of the pronunciation of the stress. Ah, yeah. I looked this one up earlier today. Yeah, становиться.
Становиться.
Становиться. Okay. That's why I remembered it, of course. I looked it up earlier today. To eat. To eat is есть, есть, есть. And the perfective is съесть, съесть, съесть. I'm going to check the pronunciation of that. Есть, съесть. So let me copy that one. Есть into Google Translate and hear what it says.
Съесть.
Съесть, съесть, съесть. Okay. To want. That's хотеть. We were just looking at that one. And what was it? Захотеть. Хотеть, захотеть. Okay. No. Хотеть, захотеть. Oh yeah, that's correct. But let me just check the pronunciation of that one. It is good to hear it. That will help fix it in your mind.
Захотеть.
Yeah, захотеть. Захотеть. So far so good. Oops. To see. So see is видеть, видеть. Ooh. I want to say увидеть. Видеть, увидеть. Видеть, увидеть. Yes. Good. To go or to come. Well, this is another big problem in Russian. There's many, many ways to say go. This is probably идти, which means to go on foot. One of the ways to say to go on foot, because we're at the, this is one of the most common verbs here. It's only number 10. So it's probably идти. Идти. But what is the perfect... paiti, paiti, I think. Iti, paiti. Paiti, paiti, iti, paiti. Let's see. Iti, paiti, okay. That was close. To stand, to be, to stand up. So стоять. Okay, I think this is going to be a fail on this one. Стоять, I want to say стоять for one of them. I think стоять. Постоять. Okay, so that one I didn't get it. Стоять, but and anyway I was guessing. I didn't really know. I got lucky with my guess, but it was a guess. So I'm gonna black that one back out. So I have to come back to it. To think. So think is думать, подумать. I'm pretty sure. Думать, подумать. Yes, okay. Ask. I came across this the other day. Спрашивать, спрашивать, and спросить. I think that's right. Спрашивать, спрашивать, and спросить. Yes? But you get the idea here. So, to live, to look, watch, see. Okay, to live, жить. Like live is жить. What's the imperfective of жить? Ooh, жить, I don't know. Пожить. Let's take a look. There is no corresponding pair. Si pajit, prajit. So, but there's no corresponding. How come it does? Oh, jit, yeah. Okay, still, I didn't know that, so I'm going to block it out. Because I should know. To look, watch, see. So, смотреть is like смотреть and посмотреть is what I would say for this. To watch, like to watch television. Смотреть, посмотреть. Okay, so pa, yeah, is a very common prefix for perfective verbs. Not the only one. U is another common one. To sit, сидеть, сидеть. I think this is one where it changes in the middle of the word, but I can't remember what it is. Or I could be wrong anyway. And plus I got it wrong. It's сидеть and сесть. Yeah, I never would have got that. Let me just check the pronunciation of the stress on сидеть.
Сидеть.
Сидеть, сидеть, and сесть. Let's hear this one actually while we're at it.
Сесть.
Сесть, 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 сидеть, сесть. Okay, I definitely did not get that one, so we'll block that one back out. Okay, so far I've done pretty well, but these are the top most common verbs, so of course I've heard them quite a bit. But this is, you get the idea. So the idea is to see what you know, and notice I'm going from English to Russian. I'm not looking at the Russian and saying, oh, I'm not looking at говорить and say, yes, that means to say. No. I'm doing it the hardest way possible. You look at the English, and then you come up with the two forms of the Russian verb. So I look at to say or to tell, and I come up with говорить and сказать. That's the best way to do it, because then you will know if you know it. Anyway, that was my just a little quick exercise, or a quick video to show you how I plan to exercise these. Okay, you get the idea. So the idea, though, is to learn these verbs. Like I said, it claims to be a list of 500, but it's actually probably about half that, since it seems to it has both the perfective and imperfective listed. Anyway, even 250 verbs is a lot. So I hope to memorize this list within the next 2 or 3 days. Seems like a lot. We'll see. In the meantime, of course, I'll carry on with my other exercises, which is a lot of listening. But the idea is, as I memorize more of these verbs, I'll understand more in the listening, because I'll say, oh, it's that verb. I recognize it now because I've memorized it. That's the idea. These different exercises that you do, they reinforce each other and have this compounding effect. Another very useful thing about this Master Russian website and this Top 500 Russian Verbs page is this. So another thing that can help fix the verbs in your mind is with sentences, of course. And if we just click, see, notice how each verb is a link. We click on each verb, it opens another page, and it gives a recording of the infinitive.
Быть.
Быть. And then, most importantly, it gives a bunch of sentences. Let me make this bigger in case you can't see it. And in this case, with recordings, they don't all have recording, but on this one they do.
Сегодня я была на работе.
Сегодня я была на работе.
Быть или не быть? Вот в чем вопрос.
Быть или не быть? Вот в чем вопрос. Probably won't be saying that anytime soon.
Кто будет кофе?
Кто будет кофе? Who would like some coffee? Literally, who will have some coffee? But apparently, this is an idiomatic way of saying it.
Кто будет кофе?
Кто будет кофе? Кто будет кофе? Okay.
Я буду дома вечером.
Я буду дома вечером. I'll be at home in the evening. So these are all very useful sentences. They can easily be cut and pasted and added to your list of sentences.